I never thought a single expired ID badge could unravel an empire, but when Karen Wong, our self-proclaimed Dragon Lady CEO, had campus security, backed by actual NYPD badges, haul me out of the office holiday party in handcuffs for corporate espionage, I realized revenge wasn't just a dish best served cold. It was a 5-course meal I'd been starving for. Picture this: champagne flutes clinking, fairy lights twinkling over the rooftop of our midtown Manhattan tech firm, and me, Alex Chun, mid-bite into a pig's in a blanket, when she waddles up, her silk blouse straining against her ample frame, screeching about my badge expiring 3 days prior. Like it was a federal crime, not a clerical oversight from HR's endless Zoom black hole. What she didn't know, as the cops zip-tied my wrists in front of 200 stunned colleagues, was that her petty power trip had just handed me the match to burn her kingdom to the ground. That night, as I sat in a holding cell that smelled like stale coffee and regret, replaying her smug grin, those beady eyes narrowing behind her knockoff Chanel glasses, her voice a nasal whine laced with that fake upper-class accent she'd cultivated at Wharton, I vowed not just to survive her wrath, but to orchestrate her fall from grace so spectacular it'd echo through boardrooms from Silicon Valley to Wall Street. Karen wasn't just any boss. She was the epitome of the model minority myth weaponized. A second-generation immigrant who'd clawed her way to the top of Apex Innovations by backstabbing anyone who looked too much like her, all while preaching diversity initiatives that were little more than photo ops with underpaid interns. And me? I was her latest sacrificial lamb. The quiet coder who'd fixed her buggy app that saved the company's Q3 earnings, only to be labeled a security threat because my badge photo showed me, with a fade haircut she deemed unprofessional. By dawn, bailed out by my sister, a no-nonsense attorney who'd seen enough microaggressions to fill a TED Talk, I was already plotting. Not the cartoonish kind with pitchforks and torches, but the surgical strike of a man who'd grown up in Flushing, Queens, dodging traffic and tiger moms, learning that real power comes from the shadows, not the spotlight. Karen thought she was untouchable, perched in her corner office with panoramic views of the Empire State Building, barking orders at her yes-men while scarfing dim some delivered to her desk. But in the cutthroat jungle of American corporate life, where loyalty is as fleeting as a viral tweet, I knew her Achilles heel. That bloated ego, fed by years of unchecked entitlement, hiding a trail of embezzlement and nepotism dirtier than a subway grate. As the weeks blurred into a haze of depositions and NDAs, I played the victim card just enough to keep the whispers alive. Colleagues demanding me late-night apologies, sharing screenshots of her infamous all-hands rants where she'd blame lazy millennials for everything from stock dips to her failed kale smoothie diet. But beneath the feigned humility, I was building my arsenal. Quiet alliances with disgruntled VPs who'd been passed over for promotions in favor of her cousin's golf buddy, leaked emails for a whistleblower intern she'd fired for attitude, and most crucially, the forensic accounting I'd hired on the sly to trace those consulting fees she funneled to offshore accounts disguised as cultural sensitivity training. It was all there, buried in the ledgers like bodies in a basement, kickbacks from shady Chinese suppliers, inflated expense reports for business trips to Macau that were really junkets with her Botox dealer. Karen, the queen of performative wokeness, was a fraud on a scale that would make Enron blush. My first move was subtle, a ripple in the pond. An anonymous tip to the SEC, framed not as outright accusation, but as concerned employee feedback about irregularities in Apex's supply chain. I watched from afar as the investigators descended, their suits as starched as Karen's denials. She spun it masterfully at first. Press releases touting her commitment to transparency. A teary-eyed interview on CNBC where she clutched a tissue and murmured about ungrateful traders trying to undermine a woman of color success. The media ate it up. Headlines screamed, "Asian American CEO under siege. Is it racism or reckoning?" And her stock in victimhood soared, even as Apex's shares dipped 5%. But I knew better. Those 3 hook lines of her undoing were already cast. The expired ID arrest as the spark, the embezzlement probe as the fuse, and my rising star, fueled by a viral LinkedIn post about corporate overreach that garnered 1 million views, as the accelerant. Little did she know, I'd enrolled in night classes at NYU Stern, devouring case studies on hostile takeovers while moonlighting as a consultant for a rival VC firm sniffing around Apex's vulnerabilities. My sister pulled strings for me to ghostwrite op-eds for the New York Times business section, subtle jabs at toxic leadership in tech that had Karen's name tattooed between the lines without ever uttering it. Friends from my hacker collective days, ethical ones, mind you, the kind that exposed data breaches for fun, dug up deleted Slack messages where she'd called me a diversity hire quota filler behind closed doors. Each thread pulled her tapestry apart, one frayed edge at a time. And through it all, I kept my head down at the day job, nodding deferentially in meetings where she'd pontificate about agile methodologies with the conviction of a televangelist, her jowls quivering over half-eaten cronets. The turning point came during the annual shareholder meeting in the Javits Center, that cavernous hall of glass and ambition where deals are born and egos die. Karen, decked out in a red, cheap how-inspired dress that hugged her curves like a bad decision, took the stage to a smattering of applause, her voice booming through the mic about resilience in the face of adversity. I sat in the back row, anonymous in a sea of suits, my heart pounding not with fear, but with the electric hum of inevitability. As she droned on about record revenues, fudged numbers, as my accountant confirmed, the projector flickered. Not a glitch, but my doing, a timed script I'd slipped into the AV system via a forgotten backdoor in their outdated firewall. Up on a massive screen, instead of pie charts and growth metrics, rolled a montage of her greatest hits. Grainy CCTV from my arrest, her snarling at the cops to cuff the little spy, audio clips of boardroom tirades laced with slurs she'd whispered to her inner circle. And worst of all, the bank transfers, neatly redacted for the public good, but damning enough to show millions siphoned to shell companies bearing her maiden name. The room erupted. Gasps turned to shouts. Phones whipped out to live tweet the chaos. Karen froze mid-sentence, her face draining of color faster than a vampire at high noon, sweat beading on her forehead like dew on a funeral wreath. This is fake news, she stammered, jabbing a manicured finger at the screen as if she could banish it with sheer will. But the damage was done. Shareholders bolted for the exits, reporters swarmed the stage like locusts, and in the melee, I slipped out a side door, my expired ID, renewed, ironically by the company's own compliance team, buzzing me through without a hitch. In the aftermath, as federal agents raided her penthouse in Tribeca, carting off designer handbags stuffed with cash-stuffed ledgers, Karen's empire crumbled like a house of cards in a hurricane. Apex's board, desperate to salvage the wreckage, turned to me, the whistleblower hero whose anonymous leaks had saved the company from implosion. Offers poured in, consulting gigs, equity stakes, and finally, that golden ticket, a seat on the interim board with a path to CEO. I accepted, of course, not out of greed, but symmetry. The woman who'd called the cops on me for a lapsed laminate now watched from the sidelines as I greenlit audits that froze her assets, diversity hires that actually empowered people like us, and a company culture purge that rooted out every Karen clone in the C-suite. But revenge, I've learned, isn't the sweet nectar they sell in movies. It's a bitter tonic that lingers on the tongue. As I settled into her old office, that panoramic view now mine, the desk cleared of some detritus, I found her final parting shot, a framed photo on the wall, her younger self beaming at graduation, arm in arm with a mentor who'd believed in her. For a split second, I pitied the girl who'd traded authenticity for assimilation, only to choke on her own ambition. Then I took it down, boxed it with the rest of her relics, and scheduled my first all-hands. The Dragon Lady was dethroned, but the fire she'd lit, that burned brighter than ever, forging something unbreakable from the ashes of her fall. Wait, that's not the end. Far from it. Because as I steered Apex through the scandal storm, with lawsuits flying and stock prices yo-yoing like a bad acid trip, I uncovered layers to Karen's rut that went bone deep. Turns out, her cultural sensitivity programs weren't just window dressing. They were a front for laundering bribes from Beijing tech firms eager to embed backdoors in our software. My forensic dives, Nights blurred into dawn with Red Bull and regex scripts. Revealed encrypted emails to state actors. Promises of user data in exchange for venture capital infusions. It wasn't just greed. It was treason-like, the kind that gets you a slap on the wrist if you're connected. But for her, with her history of visa fudging and green card favors, it was the kill shot. I leaked it to ProPublica, not anonymously this time, but as the new board chair with the full weight of legal cover. The story dropped like a nuke. Apex CEO's secret ties to foreign influence, espionage, or embezzlement. Front page fodder, with my byline in the follow-up piece. Karen, holed up in her lawyer's mahogany bunker, fired back on X, formerly Twitter, because even in disgrace, she couldn't resist the drama. Smear campaign by jealous underlings. Stand with Karen, model minority myths. She posted her profile pic, a filtered selfie from better days, likes trickling in from bot farms and bitter ex-employees. But the tide had turned. Karen Gate trended, memes of her cheap pound meltdown flooding TikTok, late-night hosts roasting her as the Karen who outsourced her karma to China. Her family fractured next. Husband, a mild-mannered accountant, filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable ethics. Kids, Ivy League brats who'd inherited her entitlement, but none of the hustle, disowned her publicly to protect their own futures. I watched it unfold from my new corner suite, the city lights twinkling like conspirators, a glass of single malt scotch in hand. No pigs in a blanket this time, just the quiet satisfaction of a boardroom balanced. Yet, in the dead of night, when the adrenaline faded, doubts crept in. Had I become her? The calculator of grudges, the architect of downfalls? My sister called it Victor's remorse, Chun family curse, but I pushed it down, focusing on the rebuild, mentorship programs for first-gen coders, transparent audits, a company holiday party with actual security that checked egos, not badges. The real gut punch came 6 months in, during a routine compliance review. Buried in a subfolder labeled Legacy Files, KW, I found my own ghost, an email chain from 5 years back, when I'd first joined as an intern. Karen, then VP of Ops, had flagged my application for enhanced scrutiny because my last name matched a watchlist alias from some post-9/11 database glitch. She'd hired me anyway. Diversity points, she noted in the margins, but the resentment festered, a seed of suspicion that bloomed into that fateful party arrest. It wasn't random. It was personal, a vendetta nursed in silence. Suddenly, her calls to the cops made 6 sense. Not just power tripping, but paranoia projected. The immigrant's fear of the other turned inward like a snake eating its tail. I confronted her in a deposition room downtown, sterile as a morgue. Her once impeccable bob, now a frizzy halo under fluorescent buzz. Chained to the table by her own hubris, she looked smaller, deflated, like a balloon animal left in the rain. "You think you won, Alex?" she rasped, voice cracking on my name like it burned. "You just like me." Climbing over bodies to sit in my chair. I leaned in, close enough to smell the cheap motel soap on her skin. "No, Karen. I'm the one who built the ladder you kicked away. Enjoy the view from the bottom." As the marshals led her out, shackles clinking like a bad wind chime, I felt the weight lift. Not triumph, exactly, but release. The dragon was slain, but the cave? That was mine to illuminate. From there, Apex soared. Under my watch, we pivoted to ethical AI, partnering with HBCUs for talent pipelines, our stock rebounding 20% on the buzz of post-Karen reinvention. Colleagues who'd ghosted me post-arrest now slapped my back at water coolers, toasting the guy who slayed the beast. But I kept a low profile, channeling the chaos into quiet reforms. Mandatory bias training that actually stuck, badge renewals automated via app, no more lapsed laminate lotteries, and a whistleblower fund seeded with recovered embezzlement bucks. My sister joked I was Karen-proofing the joint, but she was right. I'd turned poison into policy, her downfall into doctrine. Yet, the bitter aftertaste lingered, especially when her appeals hit the news. Crowdfunding campaigns from MAGA fringes painting her as a woke witch hunt victim. QAnon types spinning yarns of deep state plots against real Americans. It grated, The way her toxicity metastasized online, infecting comment sections with bile. One night, scrolling through the vitriol, I stumbled on a deepfake video. AI Karen, her jowly face superimposed on a body double, ranting about invasion from within in a tone that echoed her old boardroom barbs. It was brilliant, horrifying, proof that even Cage she inspired copycats. I reported it, of course, but the damage echoed, a reminder that revenge doesn't end with handcuffs, it ripples, warping the water for everyone downstream. In the end, as I stood on that same rooftop where it all ignited, now under my stewardship, fairy lights swapped for solar lanterns, pigs in a blanket upgraded to gourmet fusion bites. I raised a toast to ghosts. To the intern I'd been, wide-eyed and wary. To the colleagues who'd suffered in silence. And yes, to Karen, whose spectacular crash course in humility might, just might, redeem a sliver of the hell she wrought. The city hummed below, a beast of concrete and dreams, indifferent to our little dramas. But for me, in that moment, the board seat felt less like a throne and more like a checkpoint. Proof that in America's meritocracy myth, sometimes the underdog doesn't just bite back. He rewrites the rules. And if you're wondering about the final nail, it hammered itself. A year to the day after her raid, Karen's trial wrapped with a plea deal, 10 years federal, plus restitution that stripped her bare. I attended incognito, slipping into the gallery amid reporters and rubberneckers. When the judge banged the gavel, her wail cut through the room like a siren, raw, unfiltered, the dragon reduced to a mule. As they led her away, our eyes met across the divide, hers hollowed by defeat, pleading for mercy she never showed. Mine, steady, offering none. Not hate, exactly. Pity, laced with the cold calculus of consequence. She built her cage with calls to cops and cuts to kin. I just handed her the key. Now, with Apex thriving and my name etched in its charter, I mentor the next wave. Kids from Queens tenements, coding their way out of cycles I once knew. Karen's legacy? A cautionary tale in every orientation packet. Her photo redacted, but her sins immortalized in fine print. Revenge served, empire intact, soul scarred but standing. In a land of the free, where opportunity knocks, but entitlement barricades the door, I learned the hardest truth. The sweetest victory is the one that frees you to build, not just destroy. And damn if that doesn't taste better than any corner office view. Looking back, that deposition stare down wasn't closure. It was ignition for the second act of her unraveling, the part where the public spectacle turned personal vendetta into cultural crusade. As Karen's legal fees mounted, crowdfunded by a ragtag army of online sympathizers who saw her as the ultimate anti-woke warrior, I doubled down on Apex's pivot, launching Chin's Code, a nonprofit arm funneling grants to underrepresented devs in red states, places where a narrative of coastal elite persecution might otherwise stick. It was strategic, neutralized the backlash by proving progress, not punishment. But privately, it gnawed at me, the way her toxicity lingered like cigarette smoke in a no-smoking bar. Take, for instance, the holiday party redux 6 months post-scandal. I'd insisted on inclusivity, no more rooftop elitism, but a block party vibe in Bryant Park, food trucks slinging halal tacos and vegan bao, a DJ spinning Kendrick over K-pop remixes. 200 strong, we laughed under the Christmas tree lights, badges optional, toast to no cuffs, only code. Yet, as I clinked glasses with my old team lead, the guy who'd vouched for me during the arrest, I caught a shadow in the crowd. A heavy-set woman in a trench coat, binoculars dangling like a tourist albatross. Karen's sister, it turned out, hired by her to gather intel for an appeal, snapping pics of frivolous spending to paint me as the wasteful usurper. I confronted her gently, offering a plate of dumplings. She spat. "You're destroying everything she built." I smiled, handing her a business card for our ethics hotline. "No, ma'am. I'm building what she broke." That encounter fueled my next play, a podcast series, Boardroom Reckonings, hosted by yours truly, dissecting corporate Karens with guest spots from psych experts and ex-cons. Episode 1? A deep dive on entitlement epidemics, anonymized case studies that screamed Karen without naming her, her arrest calls, her slurred Slack rants, her offshore hustles. It went viral, downloads spiking to 500,000, sponsors lining up from Calm to Coursera. Karen retaliated with a Substack screed, the betrayal of the bamboo ceiling, framing her saga as intra-Asian betrayal, me as the self-hating sellout who'd erased her legacy. Comments sections lit up. Some hailed her as martyr. Others eviscerated her as enabler-in-chief. The divide was America's fault line, race, class, ambition, cracked open by one woman's grudge. But the real controversy brewed in the C-suite shuffle. With Karen's seat mine, I pushed for a board refresh. Out with the old boys club cronies who'd rubber-stamped her schemes, and with fresh blood, a black queer fintech whiz from Atlanta, a Latina supply chain guru from L.A., and my wild card Raj, the Indian-American auditor who'd first flagged her ledgers. Pushback was fierce. Proxy fights erupted, shareholders grumbling about woke overreach, echoing her own echo chamber. At one contentious meeting in our glass-walled war room, a holdover VP, silver-haired relic named Hargrove, slammed his fist. "This isn't a diversity circus, Chun. It's a business." I leaned back, channeling every stoic mentor from my immigrant dad's garage startup tales. "Exactly, Hargrove. And business thrives on trust, not theft. Sign off or step off." The vote passed 7-5, my allies swaying the fence-sitters with data decks, showing projected ROI from inclusive teams, 20% innovation bumps, per McKinsey stats I'd memorized like scripture. Hargrove stormed out, later leaking to Bloomberg that I was purging patriots. The article dropped Monday morning, stock dipped 3 points, and my inbox flooded with death threats from 4chan trolls. But we rebounded, announcing a blockbuster partnership with a Beijing rival. Irony alert. On ethical data protocols, the press conference a masterclass in optics, me flanked by diverse execs touting bridges, not walls. Karen, watching from her halfway house TV, must have choked on her instant noodles. Her bitterness boiled over in a jailhouse interview with Vice, granted to a sympathetic journo who'd covered her plight early. "Alex Chun isn't a hero," she croaked, makeup caked like war paint. "He's a vulture in virtuous clothing. He used my mistakes to climb, but mark my words, he'll fall harder." It was her first direct shot since the trial, laced with that old venom, implying I'd slept my way up, a lie so absurd it birthed its own meme storm. I responded not with fury, but finesse. A thread on X, linking to Apex's transparency report, ending with, "Mistakes happen. Owning them builds empires. Dodging them? That's just delay." Retweets hit 50K, her interview clipping ratioed into oblivion. Yet, as winter thawed into a brutal summer of board battles and media minefields, the personal toll mounted. My girlfriend, Lena, a graphic designer I'd met at a Flushing night market, started pulling away, citing the spotlight stress. "You're not you anymore, Alex," she'd say over cold takeout, eyes distant as the Hudson. "You're the revenge guy, not the coder who sketched apps on napkins." She was right. The fire I'd lit consumed me, turning late nights into paranoia spirals. Every knock a cop callback. Therapy helped, CBT sessions in a Soho loft, unpacking the Karen trauma with a shrink who specialized in high-achiever burnout. "Revenge is a contract with the past," she said. "Time to renegotiate." I did, starting small, delegating the drudgery, carving Sundays for dim-sum runs with my folks, their Queens apartment a sanctuary of mahjong clicks and Maz Kanji. Dad, ever the philosopher grocer, clapped my shoulder one evening. "Son, you didn't take her seat. You earned yours. Now sit easy." His words stuck, a bomb against the backlash brewing from Karen's cult. She'd spawned a movement, Karen's United, online forums swapping tips on surviving corporate sabotage, her manifestos downloaded by disgruntled white-collar warriors. One acolyte even doxed my address, spray-painting traitor on our brownstone stoop. NYPD, ironic saviors, brushed it off as prank but I installed cameras, the irony bitter as black coffee. The climax crested at Apex's IPO relaunch, a glitzy gala at the Met's Temple of Dinder, Nile blue lights casting shadows like ancient curses. Investors in tuxes, celebs nibbling caviar blinis, me in a tailored Tom Ford suit that felt like armor. As I took the podium to ring the virtual bell, screens nationwide lighting up with our ticker, a glitch, her doing, traced later to burner laptop, hijacked the feed. Up popped her face, projected giant. Don't let Chin fool you. He's the real thief. The crowd murmured, phones out, but I didn't flinch. I hit mute, strode to the AV booth, and flipped the script live, patched in the full SEC docket, her charges scrolling like a bad credit report. Ladies and gentlemen, I boomed, voice steady as steel. Transparency isn't a buzzword, it's our bedrock. To those peddling lies from the fringes, we say, audit accepted. Applause thundered, stocks surged 10 points pre-market, and by dawn, her United Forum was deplatformed for harassment. Karen, in solitary for the stunt, got an extra year tacked on. Victory? Pyrrhic perhaps, but pivotal. Lena came back that week, arms full of sketch pads. Let's design our future, not hers. We did. Wedding plans penciled amid prototypes for a revenge-free app, gamifying corporate ethics for fun. Through it all, the controversy simmered. Op-eds debating if I was avenger or opportunist, podcasts pitting Team Chun against Karen's kin. It fueled my TED Talk at Davos, from cuffs to corner office, rewriting revenge, where I unpack the mess without mercy, calling out how America's pull yourself up gospel ignores the boots on necks like Karen's. Q&A got heated, a hedge fund bro shouting, "You're just salty she outplayed you first." I laughed. Outplayed? She called cops on a barcode. Game's rigged from jump. I'm just leveling the field. As fall leaves carpeted Central Park, marking 2 years since the arrest, I visited her in upstate Gray Bar Hotel. Not gloating, but genealogy, tracing our shared threads, immigrant grit, model minority masks, to find fracture points. She hobbled in, grayer, gaunter, spirit unbroken but bent. "Why?" she rasped, chains clinking. I slid a photo across. Us at a long-ago team retreat, her arm around my shoulder, genuine grin. "Because you forgot we bleed the same. Fix that, Karen, for when you get out." She stared, tears carving canyons in her foundation. Too late. Maybe. But in her nod, I saw a spark, dim, defiant, human. That visit? Catharsis. Apex hit unicorn status, my board seat secure. Life a rhythm of code and kanji. Karen's out in 5, parole pending good behavior. I'll watch, not with dread, but distance. The man who took her throne now tending his own garden. Thorns pruned, blooms bursting. In the end, the sweetest revenge? Living well, unscarred by the scars she left. America's boardroom battlefield claims many. Survivors don't just sit, they redefine the game. With Karen's shadow receding like a bad hangover, the real work began. Not just steering Apex through blue skies, but navigating the cultural crosswinds her cyclone had whipped up. America, that great experiment in ambition and amnesia, loves a redemption arc. Mine was tailor-made, splashed across Forbes as the coder who crowned himself king. But fame's a fickle mistress. 1 month you're the underdog darling. The next you're dodging subpoenas from senators grandstanding on big tech bias. Karen's diehards kept the embers glowing, filing frivolous suits claiming I'd stolen intellectual property, her recipes for microwave General Tso's apparently, while progressive outlets grilled me on perpetuating cycles of intraminority conflict. I leaned into it, launching Echo Chambers Anonymous, a forum for corporate survivors swapping stories sans schadenfreude. Threads filled with tales. The black marketer iced out for not smiling enough. The Latino engineer demoted for cultural fit fails. Karen's name popped up often, a boogeyman for bad bosses. Her Chi-Pow meltdown remixed into ringtone warnings. One viral post. A whistleblower from her alma mater, spilling how she'd sabotaged a rival's thesis for a leg up. She called campus security on my laptop charger, Said it looked suspicious, the poster wrote. Echoes of my ID fiasco, a pattern in puce. Personally, the scars itched. Lena and I tied the knot in a low-key Central Park ceremony. Cherry blossoms as confetti, Ma's egg rolls over filet mignon, vowing no drama aisles. But on our honeymoon in Maui, scrolling beachside, alert pinged. Karen's appeal denied, but she'd named me in a civil suit for defamation by proxy. Her lawyer, a sleazy ambulance chaser from Queens, alleged my podcast incited harassment. I laughed into my pina colada, then lawyered up sister's firm pro bono, dismantling it in depots like a Jenga tower of lies. Ms. Wong, my counsel, pressed her via Zoom, her face pixelated in prison greens. Did Mr. Chin ever utter your name? She squirmed, jowls a-tremble. Not directly, but everyone knew. Case dismissed, sanctions slapped, her legal war chest depleted. The wind rippled wrong, though. That night, as waves lapped our lanai, Lena traced my frown. You're still fighting ghosts. She was spot on. Revenge's residue is resentment's residue, a low hum disrupting sleep. Back in NYC, I doubled therapy, unpacking not just Karen, but the cultural coal I carried. Tiger parent pressures, succeed or suicide, whispers from Flushing elders. You're not her villain, my shrink affirmed. You're the bridge she burned. It clicked. My story wasn't solo. It was symphony, harmonies from every overlooked face in the org chart. Boardroom battles evolved too. With IPO funds flowing, we-eyed acquisitions. A scrappy AI startup in Austin, helmed by a trans founder Karen would have crucified as disruptive. Due diligence dragged. Investors balked at the risk profile, code for not our demo. In a tense all hands, I laid it bare. We're not buying talent. We're buying tomorrow. Karen hoarded power. We share it. Votes split, but passion prevailed. The deal closing with cheers and craft IPAs. The press loved it. Apex's woke wake-up call, but trolls swarmed, boycotting trending with Photoshop pics of me as Mao. Lena designed counter memes. Me in a crown of circuit boards, caption, thrones for sharing. Karen's next jab landed sideways. A tell-all ghostrant from her cell. Dragon down. A CEO's unfiltered fall. Dropped by a vanity press, it sold 5K copies on spite alone. Rants on betrayers like Chun. Cherry-picked emails painting her as visionary victim. Reviews roasted it. More wine than wisdom, quipped the post. I ignored it, mostly, until Chapter 8, the intern incident, twisting my early days into a tale of me stealing code from her pet project. Lies, provable by Git commits, but the sting? It humanized her hurt, a mirror to my own. I penned a foreword for a counter-anthology, From the Trenches, True Tech Tales, donating proceeds to coder scholarships. Not all dragons breathe fire, I wrote. Some hoard hoards till they hoard no more. As autumn crisped into election season frenzy, the macro drama amplified her micro-mess. Politicos weaponized Karen Gate. Dems hailed me as equity exemplar. GOP as corporate commissar. A Fox segment looped her arrest clip. My zip ties, not hers, framing it as Biden-era overregulation. I declined invites, focusing inward. Apex's Legacy Lab, a think tank auditing old ops for biased landmines. We unearthed gems, like Karen's affinity group that funneled funds to her cronies and buried them with reforms. Blind promotion algorithms, peer review sabbaticals. Employees thrived. Turnover plummeted. Glassdoor glowing 4.8 stars. The bitter twist? Her kid, eldest daughter May, Columbia Poli-Sci whiz, all sharp Bob and sharper wit, reached out via LinkedIn. Mr. Chun read the book. She's wrong about you. Can we talk? Coffee at a Midtown Starbucks, neutral ground. She slid over a USB, Mom's real journals. Not the sanitized crap. Pages of regret, raw as sake. Admissions of fear-fueled firings, envy of my easy rise, Pleas for forgiveness to ghosts like me. She broke before she burned, May said, eyes wet. Help me fix the family she fractured? I did. Anonymous donation to her nonprofit, mentoring slots for her siblings. Not absolution for Karen, but alchemy, venom to virtue. Winter brought Vindication's chill. Apex's year-end gala, now at the Whitney. Art over ostentation, honored unsung coders, me last on the roster. As I spoke of seats at tables we built, a standing ovation swelled, but my eyes snagged on the back. Hargrove, uninvited, glowering. Later, he cornered me. You ruined her, boy. Happy. I met his gaze. Ruined? Nah. Revealed. Join or fade. He joined. Reluctantly. Reformed by retirement's reflection. Even dragons have damsels. But the deepest cut came spring, parole hearing season. Karen's bid hinged on remorse letters. Mine requested a Hail Mary from her counsel. I wrote truth, tempered, praise for her early innovations, critique of her corrosive climb, wish for wisdom in whatever wilderness awaited. You've fallen far, I closed. Fall forward. Board debated my mercy, softens our stance, but I held, strength isn't score settling, it's strategy. She got paroled, conditions strict, no contact zones, community service at a women's coding boot camp. Irony? She mentored there, grudgingly, teaching HTML to high schoolers who'd laugh at her old empire. Watching from afar, progress reports via May, I saw flickers. Karen, softer around edges, leading workshops without the whip. Not redemption, perhaps, but reckoning. Me? I stepped down from CEO, installing Raj as successor, content with board oversight, and Chin's code full-time. Lena and I welcomed our son, Alex Jr., AJ for short. His first cry of code I couldn't crack, but one I'd debug with love, not ledgers. Karen's post-prison path? Rocky. A blog, from cuffs to clarity, chronicling her awakening, part therapy, part hustle. We crossed once at a tech ethics panel in D.C. Her in mufti, me in chinos. No words, just nods. Enemies evolved to echoes. America's churned us both. We emerged etched, enduring. In the quiet of my Flushing home, AJ cooing over onesies, I reflect. That expired ID? Not in, but ellipsis. Karen called cops, I called checkmate. But the board? It's infinite. Players rotating, rules rewritten. The real win? Playing on, unbowed. Years blur like buggy code in the rear view, but the epilogue writes itself in increments. Apex a Fortune 500 staple. Chun reforms textbook fodder in MBA seminars. Karen a footnote in failure files alongside WeWork's wild child. My days? A mosaic. Board meetings via holocall, post-pandemic perk. AJ's soccer games in Prospect Park. Lena's gallery shows blending pixel art with ancient ink. We've got a rhythm, unhurried, the kind Karen chased but never caught, too busy building walls instead of windows. Her trajectory twists tellingly. Post-parole, she shacks up in a Jersey walk-up, downgrade from Tribeca penthouse, but proximity to family mend some fences. May's nonprofit booms, funneling Apex grants into urban ed tech, her siblings scattering to safer harbors. One in med school, dodging mom's shadow. The other in venture, ironically pitching to my VCs. Karen consults freelance, culture audits for startups, preaching pitfalls she personified. Reviews mixed. Insightful, if ironic, says one. Still sounds salty, gripes another. She pens a sequel, Rising from Ruins, less rage, more reflection, acknowledging the chun who checked me, a line that raised my brow over breakfast bagels. We collide again at a Brooklyn Tech fair, booths buzzing with bots and brews. She's demoing an app for bias-busting HR, voice steadier, frame slimmer from spin classes therapy mandated, rumor has. Our eyes lock over a VR headset. She approaches, tentative as a debug prompt. Alex, congrats on the book. My memoir, Badge of Honor, out last fall, part tell-all, part toolkit, royalties to immigrant aid. I nod. Yours too. Heard it's evolved. Awkward beat, then her laugh, genuine, gravelly. Water under the bridge? Or just the East River? We chat surface. AJ's milestones, her grandkid on the way. No apologies aired, but absolution implied in the air, thick with falafel and forgiveness. The controversy that once crackled? faded to flickers. Karen Gate memes archived in Internet Addicts, her United Forum a ghost town of grudges. But echoes endure. In boardrooms where Karen means petty policing, in Slack channels warning ID check drama. I've keynoted against it, from South by Southwest to the UN's Digital Rights Forum, arguing, power's poison if unshared, entitlement's the antidote to equity. Crowds cheer, but Q&A's cut. Did you enjoy her pain? A Pakistani dev asks. I pause. Enjoy? No. Endure? Absolutely. Her fall freed us all. Family weaves the warmest threads. Dad retires the bodega. Us chun kids pooling for Queen's Co-op. Ma's garden balcony, bursting basil. Holidays? Fusion feasts. Turkey with teriyaki glaze. Toast to no more tiger bites. AJ, toddling now, babbles code like mantra. I teach him loops on a Fisher-Price laptop, whispering, build, don't burn. Lena sketches our saga as graphic novel. Panels of zip-tied, me morphing to suited sentinel. Karen a dragon defanged into dove. Redemption's messy, she captions. Damn right. Yet, the bitter lingers in quiet corners. A nightmare recurs. Her face in the holding cell mirror, my own, contorted cuff chafed. Waking sweat slick, I journal it out. Not trauma, but talisman, reminder that revenge's rush recedes, revealing the rebuild's rigor. Karen's latest LinkedIn? Grateful for grace. Seeking collaborations. I like it, anonymous, small grace, given freely. America's arc bends slow, but bends it does. Apex incubates ID-free initiatives, badgeless access via biometrics, trust over tokens. We've acquired her old supplier, reformed for fair trade, her kickback ghosts exorcised. Shareholders sing my praises, but I credit the chorus. Raj's steady hand, May's moral compass, even Hargrove's grumpy wisdom in advisory. Final hook? Last week, a package at the door. Unmarked, postmarked jersey. Inside, a framed relic. That team retreat photo, restored, inscribed, to the ladder I kicked. Thank for the climb back. K.W. No return address, but I know. I hang it in the home office, beside AJ's crayon circuits. Not endgame, but ellipsis eternal. In the corporate coliseum, we all claw and concede, but the true throne? It's the one we vacate for the next. So here's to expired IDs and empires toppled, to Karen's humbled and Chen's unchained. The board's vast, seats shifting, grab yours but grip lightly. Life's not checkmate, it's continuous compile, bugs and all. And in that code, we find not just survival, but syntax for something sacred. Shared success, unscarred by the stings of those who came before.